feel like I used to have this goal of a somewhat consistent background. The framing was always uneven, but at least there was an attempt. It was supposed to be from like here to here, in line with some of the mantle. I've just given up. Hello, this is Hervé, and today I'm going to finally catch up with all the pending book reviews. These are the books that I read in August mostly. I feel like there are some books that I don't have here in my possession for whatever reason, some digital stuff that I've been reading, but because I feel like I have enough books here to talk about, I'm going to tell you about these books. August was a very weird month. It was the month where I finished my dissertation, so I was reading a lot of manga just to sort of decompress. I also read a couple of other interesting books. There are 3 books that I won't talk massively about because I am going to tell you about in other videos, so I'll start with those. The first one is The Anomaly by Hervé LeTellier, let's say. This is a translated book from the French by Adriana Hunter. It starts as a bit of a thriller and it's supposed to be about this assassin, but then a lot more characters are added. And the main gist is that for some reason that becomes apparent later, there is this one flight where all the passengers become duplicated. That is what the back of the book tells you, and I won't say more because I feel like the back gives you an impression, but then what the book actually is closer to sci-fi than a thriller, and I actually like that. I thought this was very interesting. I wouldn't have picked it up if it hadn't been nominated for the Booker Prize. I am a translated fiction judge for the finals. Quality-wise, I thought this was interesting. I think it was a bit too ambitious for such a short book. It looks like standard thickness, but it has quite a big print. The chapters are really short, which make it really readable, and it's very, very interesting, and it does some interesting things with its premise, but the premise, more than the premise, the result of the premise, the rationalization and the commentary, what it attempts, it's so ambitious, and it has such a large cast of characters that after the setup, everything feels a bit stagnant and then just rushed. I will talk more about this in the Booker Prize wrap-up, but I overall enjoyed it. I really devoured it, and I started reading it right after my dissertation handed, and it was exactly what I needed because I needed something fast-paced to get me in the mood of reading right away, and this definitely accomplished that. So in that respect, it was good. It still had a lot of flaws, and I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it, but if you're in the mood, I will say again, it is a bit more science-y fiction than sort of thriller-y, but also it does not fall completely under the science fiction. So I guess if you're into like slower, perhaps a bit more like philosophical thrillers, maybe this is for you. Then, okay, this is shameful. This was my pick for the low-key overdue book club for May. I have no excuses. I took my sweet time because I was reading a lot of other stuff. And if you're listening to this and not watching this, this is Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake, How Fungi Make Our Worlds, Change Our Minds, and Shape Our Futures. This is a nonfiction book that everyone has read, except very few people, and I am glad that people joined. I know for a fact that some people read this in May, and I'm sorry. I will upload the wrap-up and discussion video soon-ish. I actually really enjoyed it. The thing is that because it's denser than other books, I just sort of read a little bit at a time whenever I had the mental capacity, basically. This is about fungi, but specifically about how understanding the organizational properties of fungi and seeing fungi as living organisms that are more sentient than we think, we can also reevaluate how we think about cognition and about life and intellect. And it's fascinating. It is also half memoir, not half memoir, but it has a lot of autobiographical elements that I think work in its favor. It's not that it's not sciencey, but it's definitely told as a tale, and it's much more narrative than maybe you would expect from a book that seems so science focused. And so if you want something denser, I think this is not for you, but as an introduction, it's great. And even if you know a lot about fungi, I think this just makes you reevaluate how you think, again, about cognition, about networking, about sort of organic structures and just how they operate. It was fascinating. A bit disjointed because, again, there are so many elements to fungi life and so many arguments that you can make. So each chapter is very much its own thing, but I think it worked in its favor. I really, really liked it. I will discuss more because I have a lot of notes and a lot of quotes that I want to discuss. So if you read that book, please be on the lookout. And finally, I have How to Gut a Fish by Sheila Armstrong. Earlier this year, I discovered the Edge Hill Prize for short story collections, and I'm obsessed. I was doing, and I'm still I guess, trying to read through the long list. I think the short list must have been announced already, but I really, really want to read through the long list, even if I don't do it before the winner is announced. We'll see how this goes. But I did a blog post. I haven't been using my blog very much, but I will get back to it eventually. I will link that post down below. I am expecting to review all of those books individually through blog posts, but I also would like to do a whole video wrap up. We'll see if all of this is possible. However, this is a book by an Irish author. I don't remember if this is a debut collection, maybe, and it was so uneven. I know a lot of people say this about short story collections in general, but for me, it's very unusual because I am so used to reading short story collections that I'm really receptive to them. This one, I don't know, it started off so well. Like the first two stories, I really, really enjoyed. They are sort of quotidian creepy, as in what happens is so quotidian, especially the first story. The first story was arresting, and I think the last one also has like a similar effect. Actually, almost nothing happens. It's just describing these very ordinary things in sort of unsettling, almost dark fairy tale, folk tale sort of terms. And so it is a twist of language to examine the everyday, and that was great. However, it got old. It got repetitive. Halfway through, I actually DNF'd one of the stories. I considered DNFing the whole book. I'm glad I didn't, because I did like some of the later stories. My favorite was definitely the first one, Whole. The second one, How to Gut a Fish, was also good, and I think Dome or Star Jelly are really good, but then there were others that I found so draggy and long and just a bit pointless, or a bit like, okay, I know what you're doing now, please show me something new. Would I recommend this? Not the whole collection, but definitely the first two stories. It's funny how I said I wasn't going to talk too much about those books. I definitely did. Anyways, manga. Let's just move through Tokyo Ghoul, because these are 3 of the volumes, and I already have talked about this series, which is about a version of the world, and specifically Japan, of course, where ghouls are real, and these are human-looking creatures that have to feed on human flesh. The protagonist is this young university student who is bitten, if I recall correctly, by a ghoul, and he inherits some of the qualities. So he's like sort of half ghoul, half human, but still needs the flesh. It is essentially a way of commenting on predation. It can be used to fit several different metaphors, but basically who we consider human, who we consider other. And these are volumes 2, 3, and 4. And honestly, I started kind of iffy. Volume 2, I thought it was alright, and then starting volume 3, I really became hooked. So I'm definitely going to go forward through this series. It's getting really interesting. It is sort of the idea of the chosen one, but really questioning it so far. So I am super interested. I also really like the art style. I think the art style is really cool. It's just a very well-rounded manga, and so I really recommend it if you're looking for some sort of newer-ish. It's not really new, but yeah, if you're looking for like some solid manga series to follow that both comments on contemporary topics and feels very fresh and modern, but also has that dark adventure element, I think this might be a good one. It is long, but not as long as others. So it's just a good balance of like good adventure, urban, sort of fantasy-ish series. Another series I began, Assassination Classroom by Yusei Matsui. I thought I would like this more than I did. It's like this very funny comedy thing. There is this creature, he's an alien, and he wants to teach this class of good for nothings, quote unquote. It is sort of a commentary on the Japanese education system where, you know, the worst students go to this class and no one has any faith in them. Therefore, they have no reason to try. This alien says, okay, if they can kill me, or like I will end life on Earth. But basically, the students have to try and kill the teacher. That is why it's called Assassination Classroom. It's a very ridiculous premise, but it sort of works because the point is that you discover that the alien is actually like a really good teacher and really motivates his students. It's really wholesome. It's just silly and fun, but has this commentary on education. I will continue probably eventually, but I think there are like 20 volumes or so, and I am focused on Tokyo Ghoul, so it's not a priority for now. But I would recommend it if you like sort of quirky, weird anime or manga. I think there is an anime of this, I might be wrong. Yeah, if you like something more serious and like with a bit more structure and logic, this is not for you. But if you're into stuff like maybe Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or something like that, I think you might enjoy this. I don't know, it's both like silly and wholesome, and you get like, oh, this is actually a good teacher and we should be encouraging these kids. So yeah, it was nice. I liked it. Then I have 2 volumes in the series Welcome Back Alice by Yuzo Oshimi. These I picked up because they seemed very interesting. It's basically a love triangle. Forget the names, but there is basically a guy who has always been best friend with this person who goes away from the school and then comes back as Alice. She's never described like this in the manga, but she presents feminine, and I think also she uses female pronouns in here. But Alice also says that she doesn't want to be a guy anymore, and she doesn't feel like a guy, but also doesn't really want to be a girl. So maybe non-binary would be a better description. However, these terms are not used. And there is a third main character who used to like Alice, but Alice never reciprocated because Alice likes this dude and this dude likes the other girl. So it's like a love triangle, but also has this gender component because now like this guy's kind of attracted to Alice. And so it's just a very interesting thing. I'm always curious about how Japanese writing will deal with gender and queerness. The cultural standard is both entirely different, but now thanks to the internet actually is closer to our understanding. So yeah, I'm really interested in seeing how it goes along. The first volume I felt was very unequally paced. It was so slow and then sort of flew by a bit too much. So I was like, it's good and I'm curious, but it's not excellent. It's not Dusk at Dawn, which was like, or Our Dreams at Dusk, which is quite possibly the best LGBT plus manga that I've ever read. And I think it was on my 2021 best of. So yeah, I would recommend that over this. But if you have a chance, yeah, you should pick these up just because it's interesting. I definitely do want to see more of where this goes. Sadly, I don't think the third volume is available yet, but I will definitely be continuing on with the series because I'm really, really interested. And then Classmates by Asumiko Nakamura. Asumiko Nakamura is one of my favorite mangaka. I love her style. I love her macabre sensibility. It's funny because I got to know her through some short stories that she did in some publications, and then I read Utsubora by her, and oh my god, the manga was so good. But this is just slice of life about 2 classmates that fall in love, and that's it. The aesthetics are beautiful. I'm not letting you see anything. I don't know. I love her character design. I love her pacing. I just think she's so good and she's so unique. Whether she's doing every day or she's doing something a bit more sinister or plot heavy, it's always good. I always enjoy it. Here's the sad part. I can't find volume 2 anywhere. It is available in Spanish, but I want to have this series in the same language. If I had bought the first one in Spanish, then I could read the second one in Spanish because it is available. But the third one is not available in Spanish. However, it is available in English. So, anyways, I'm sure the second one will be reissued soon because the sequel, which is, I think, Classmates Blank or something like that, is about to be published or was recently published, something like that, in English. So I'm sure they will reissue the rest. Actually, the first one was impossible to get a couple of months ago, and then suddenly it's everywhere. Manga works like that. One more manga, Skullface Bookseller Honda-san by Honda-san, and this is actually fictionalized nonfiction. It's basically this anonymous bookseller mangaka who works at a bookshop, and she just tells her story, and it's hilarious. It's very chaotic, it's very nonsensical, so if you want a story, then this is not it. But if you like really silly episodic anime or manga, this is for you. It's just really, really fun. And if you've worked not even just in a bookshop, if you've worked in retail, you'll know what she's talking about. And also, I just really like how she designs the character. So she presents herself as Skullface. It's just a great time, a bit of a romp. So if you are looking for something like that, it's something that is not manga. On Longin by Yina Kim. And is this translated? Yes, translated by Mattho Mandersloot. This is an independent little pamphlet or like chapbook, a fictionalized tale of the writer's grandparents. It's a bit allegorical, and it is basically how this old couple deals with the loss of a child. And it's heartbreaking, it's very beautiful. I basically got it at Gosh Comics, which is my favorite comic book and graphic novel store in London. They have like a lot of indie titles, including little boxes with a lot of like little chapbooks and stuff that you can get. Just so beautiful. It is a bit heartbreaking, it is a bit sad, but it is ultimately wholesome, and I just liked it. I enjoyed it. It was good. And finally, The Con Artists by Luke Healey. This is another graphic novel with a style that is much less intricate. It's very simple. It's also very good. It does have some pacing issues, I will say, but basically this is about a guy who does stand-up comedy, and he has this friend who is a bad friend in many ways. And it's called The Con Artists because it examines friendships where neither of the participants are very honest, both with themselves and with each other, and you'd never know where you stand with the other, and it's just fascinating. It is one of those books that is so millennial, but it works because it's earnest in its efforts, and yet it is also a bit cheeky. So I just really appreciate it, both the style and the storytelling. As I said, it has pacing issues. It is very short. It could have been more in some respects, but it is still fantastic, and I really recommend it. It is also very funny, and it gets intense. Just like the design, I feel, also adds to the humor, the expressions that they have sometimes. I also love that it has like a queer element. It has a queer element. Both the main characters are gay, if I recall correctly, and it's just fascinating. It's also so great to have a book that focuses on friendships. True, it's like very toxic, but it's just such an interesting look at male friendship. I shouldn't have picked it up because I've spent so much money on graphic novels and I still haven't read them all. But I got it right away because it had the favor and favor seal of approval. And although I have been burned by favor and favor on occasion, I still place a lot of value on their catalog and their imprint. And this one did not disappoint, so I would recommend it if you like this style and if you like the themes that I've mentioned. That was it. Please let me know if you've read any of these books, plan to read any of these books, and if not, just tell me what you've been reading. And that's all. See you next time.